Most people don't realize this, but saying the wrong mantra to yourself is going to be one of the biggest reasons why you get thrown back into your self-sabotaging patterns. And I had to learn this the hard way. It took me years to recognize it, as I would make massive identity claims and then it wouldn't work out. I would blunder and then it would launch me slingshot back into my old patterns. And I was simply just following conventional advice you would see online. And it took me quite a while to eventually figure out my own process on how to do it. And now that I coach people on a regular basis, I see this all the time, which is why in this video, I want to talk about the 2 types of mantras you can do, why a mantra can actually break your momentum. And then finally, I'm going to show you an actual process you can do with mantras that are actually have you see benefits within a couple weeks. This way you can finally start getting out of your own way and become the person you're meant to be. So here are the 2 types of mantras that I use. The first one is an identity-based mantra, and the second one is a vision-based mantra. An identity-based mantra is a present tense use of a mantra. So for example, that would sound something like, I'm a super smart person. I am going to be the most loving to my neighbors, or I'm going to be super courageous. It is an identity frame you are trying to transition yourself into. A vision-based mantra, however, is a future tense version. So that would look something like, in 3 years or 5 years, I wish to have more alignment with my mind, my heart, and my soul. Or I would like to have an income that I can survive off of independently. It is something that is not describing the present moment. It is something describing an event in the future. Now, they can obviously overlap. You can have your vision be identity-based and vice versa, but having them separated is going to really make this whole experience and the concept a lot more clear. Now, where can a mantra go wrong? Why does it go wrong? Well, let's start off with the identity-based version. Let's say you have years and years of evidence built up that whenever you're presented with a situation that requires conflict management, being in the presence of conflict and chaos, and because of something that's happened throughout your whole life and it's an area that you wish to strengthen, every time you're in it, you can't follow through with it. It freaks you out, you wish to shy away from it, and that's just what you've been doing your whole life. If your identity-based mantra is, I am the bravest person in the world and I'm going to tackle every single situation that comes by my way if it requires me dealing with conflict. When you do something like that, what's going to be happening is there's a cognitive dissonance between what you're saying and what your brain perceives as true. If your whole life it's been the contrary, and then all of a sudden you're saying that you are now the extreme opposite, you'll feel within you it's a bluff. It's not true, it's not real. So what ends up happening the next time you're in a situation that is calling on to you to be brave or courageous, if the pressure is too hot, you obviously are not ready for it. And because you're not ready, you're going to shy away from it. And then all of a sudden the voices and everything starts coming back with a vengeance saying, you see, I told you, you're not actually brave. You're not meant to do this and X, Y, and Z. Your brain will just start running all over the place. In other words, your brain will predict your failure. It'll look past into your old memories and not see any evidence to prove that true. And so you will already from the get-go sabotage yourself before you even get a chance to do anything. Now let's compare it to what is a vision-based mantra. If not done correctly, what can that look like? Simply put, if a vision-based mantra is not aligned with the conscious knowledge of your strengths and weaknesses today, you will not be able to tell the difference between a vision that is actually internally aligned with your mind, your heart, and your soul and what you actually desire to go into, or a coping strategy against past memories, narratives, and prophetic stories that you've been telling yourself. You cannot tell the difference. And this is something that I've been falling into for a big part of my life. In fact, when I was a competitor in jiu-jitsu and I was competing all over the place and I was actually doing very well, what I thought was the vision that I wanted to be a world champion and all these things was something I felt aligned with. But in reality, I was not acknowledging why I was actually doing that in the first place. What were my weaknesses? What were my strengths? I didn't acknowledge any of that. I just wanted to escape this prison of fearing failure. I was so afraid of failure. I was so afraid of disappointing people that I thought if I can win their attention and win their approval by winning a lot of medals, that could be a remedy for it. But it never works out that way, because you're going to move in that direction, the coping direction, and you're going to do all these things. You're going to try to achieve success. You're going to try to prove other people wrong. And even if you get close to it, you're going to feel emptier and emptier. The more misaligned you are, the more unhappy you're going to be, the more confused and frustrated and angry. So then if you want to avoid all that drama and save yourself years, apply this strategy that I've done for myself and now apply to people that I mentor. It'll do wonders within a matter of weeks. So the first thing you're going to go for is, when you're making an identity-based mantra, you have to first acknowledge, where are you at currently? So then and by the way, you can use any self-sabotaging scenario. It could be in relationships, it can be in career, it could be anything you want. It applies to all. First, look at what you're dealing with. So let's say we'll use the courage example. You lack courage and you want to develop more courage and bravery. Well, first you're going to acknowledge truthfully, where are you at right now? To not flag your brain and cause an alarm saying not true, not true. So if you've had a history of avoiding conflict, you can acknowledge to yourself, I am afraid of conflict. It is something that I've avoided my whole life. But then the mantra can be, what is the next step that you can take that it gives you a sense of inertia, but that also doesn't flag your brain and say that is not possible? And it can be as simple as, when the next opportunity to deal with conflict comes up, I don't have to solve it. I don't have to be the hero in the room. I will simply try my best to be in the moment with it. If you had a history of running from it, well, the first thing I'm going to do is be in the presence of it and try to manage my emotions while it's happening. When you say something that is slightly more than what you're comfortable with, but it's within a certain boundary, the gap between what you say and what you do is not so wide, your brain won't flag it. You'll still feel nervous, you'll still feel anxious, but you will feel excited enough to know that this is something that I can actually achieve. And you will maintain that mantra until this step becomes easier, until you're able to actually be in the presence of conflict. Best example I can give you is a mentee that I had. His name is Noel. You can actually see, I made a video with him. We talked about his whole transition and from the beginning to who he is now. He had a conflict issue. He had a challenge with dealing with it. And so this was the same approach we took. Start very small. It was obviously individual to him. We had to find what fit his lifestyle best and his temperament. But we started with very micro adjustments, micro mantras. And as those became easier, we then transitioned to bigger ones and bigger ones and bigger ones. And eventually over time, because it was like a frog in boiling water, when we eventually said that when there's a conflict that comes your way, you are the one to deal with it. The next one that comes your way, you will be the one to take a stand. Try to be the first one instead of waiting for someone else. If I told that to him at the very beginning, it would have been impossible. But after weeks and weeks and months, it became absolutely possible. And that's exactly what happened. Do not underestimate micro to macro. I say it all the time. It's the small changes that are going to lead to the biggest changes. Now, how do you overlap this with the vision-based mantra? Well, you can have two of them mixed. You can have a particular outcome in your life, such as monetarily or in relationships, or you can actually have them overlap with, let's say, the courage example. Let's say you tell yourself, in 3 years, I want to have the courage to run a marathon or do a public speaking gig, whatever it is. And then what you do is have that in relationship to your mantras. How can you set yourself up to have micro movements towards that direction while acknowledging and being present with what you're strong at and what you're weak at? The more you are direct, the more you keep conscious awareness of that, you will stay in alignment, and that vision will actually pull you forward rather than shying you away and having you divert because your brain is going 100 miles an hour trying to talk you out of it. The peace you will feel knowing that this is in alignment rather than a coping strategy is going to save you so much time and so much headache. Who knows where I would have been if I had known this when I first started competing. Perhaps I would have gone a different direction, or perhaps I would have competed differently rather than feeling so crippled by my fear. And I'm not one to tell you that this is something that you could fix right away. You have to be consistent with it. And that's just the truth of it. I know it doesn't sound as flashy, it doesn't sound as fun. We want something to be fixed in a matter of days, but in the realm of personal development, in shadow work, in finding alignment with who you are and dealing with all these challenges, it is not overnight. I really wish I could snap my fingers and do that. It's just not what really happens. So I can't give you any false promises. But what I can definitely say is if you stick to it and optimize along the way, you will see such changes. And you know what? 6 months will go by, and it may feel like a long time while you're in the pit of self-sabotage. But 6 months in the grand scheme of things is not long, and you can make such progress in 6 months. It'll blow your mind. That's why mentorship is important, because it's very difficult to do this on your own, to see what's going on, because you're in the midst of it. You're the main actor in this play. It's not easy to see who the director is, which is you, but once you're in the thick of it, it's like a fog. You can't tell. So that's why you need somebody who's with you, who's gone through the exact same process to actually walk you through that path. Now, the next thing you need to understand after this is what is actually happening with self-sabotage. What is the impulse? How does it happen? What's causing it? Because once you can actually see it, then action and strategy will become infinitely more effective, because you're no longer just throwing darts in the fog. You can actually see clearly what's happening. So if you want to see a breakdown of that, go ahead and click this video right over here.